Hi guys, it's Graham from the CG Construction Lab. Today we've got a tutorial on how to animate an object along a curve or a path. Similar to what you're seeing on the screen now, where we've got a truck following the road alignment. You can reverse backwards and you can drive forward and out. And we can keyframe these points in the scene to bring it to life. So let's jump into it. So we'll hide this scene and we can come back to that in a few moments, but let's just start with some basics. So we'll start by inserting a path. In this instance, you can also use a Bezier curve. We will hit Tab and 7 to view from the top. Let's just make a bigger path so we can actually see what's going on. Bit of a bend on it. Make it a little bit interesting. Okay, and then we're going to Shift A, Mesh, and add a cube. Now with this cube, I'm just going to put a front face on it. So we're going to Control R to create a cut, and then I'm going to grab the line in the middle, and I'm just going to drag it out so we can see where the nose is. This will just help us when we start animating it along the curve to see which direction we should be pointing. So one thing that's really important when you're using the constraints to follow paths is making sure that this object, your cube, is on the world origin. If it's not on the world origin, you end up with an offset when you actually constrain it to the curve, and I'll show an example a little bit later. So to create the path animation, we're going to click on the cube. We're going to click on the Constraints tab, and then we're going to add Object Constraint. We're going to click on the Follow Path Constraint. Then we can select our target, which will be the NURBS path. So sometimes you find it hard to select the curve on the screen because there's so many meshes and objects in it. You can also go into the Properties tab here and select it. So you can see our cube's now jumped to the start of the curve. But if we try and move it along the path, you'll see that it's not actually following the alignment of it. So we do have a few options here. The best option for what we're trying to do is click on the Follow Curve. But then we've got to work out what the forward axis is. So if you saw at the start, we had the nose pointing down the red axis, the x-axis. So if we click on the x-axis now for the forward axis, now you can see our nose is pointing along the curve. So if we now reduce the offset in this case, you can see we're actually following the curve along nicely. Now, I mentioned before that if you're not on the world origin, you'll end up creating an offset. So I'll just give you an example of that. If we just move this away from the target point, the origin point, the world origin point, sorry, and then we add the constraint again and we connect to the path, you can see we've got this blue line. So while our object is trying to follow the alignment of the curve, it's doing it on an offset now. So if you have this issue, we can still leave the curve selected, but you just need to hit Alt-G to clear your location on the cube, and that will then bring it back to lining directly onto the path itself. If we want to then animate this cube, we can just create some keyframes. So on 0, we can hit I on the Offset tab. Maybe we jump to 60, and then we can move it to -55. We can then jump to 90. Let's take it back a little bit, and then 150. Let's bring it back forward. And you can see now, if we hit play on that, we've got a cube nicely following the path. Okay, so let's now go back to the truck that we saw at the start of the video. This is a model I've built out and it's part of our asset library. We've got a number of pre-built bits of equipment that we use for like construction animations, construction visualizations. So they just drag and drop, and then we can actually animate and use these. So we'll use the truck in this instance. So I've got a road scene that I've already pre-built. It's a very basic mesh. It's just been animated. I've created a mesh, I've arrayed it, and then I've deformed it along a curve, just to get a base profile to give you a bit of a feel. But what we're going to do is use this mesh. I'm going to select the two ends of one of the road lines here. I'm going to go select, I'm going to go linked, and shortest path. So that's going to give me all the vertices along a line here. I'm going to go Shift D and P. That's going to let me separate those vertices out. So I've got this line here. Now, if I can convert this line with object, convert into a curve, that then lets me use that curve to animate this truck along. So similar to what we've done before, the truck's on the world origin. We're going to go to the Constraints tab. We're going to add Object Constraint and Follow Path. We're going to click on our curve. Again, in this instance, I'm going to grab it in the menu up here because it's easier to select. Now, one thing I've noticed recently with Blender is, if you can see, even though this curve is also, its origin point is also the world origin, I need to re-click it again. I don't know why that's become a thing. So if I click on this line, if I go Object, and I go Set Origin to 3D Cursor, now you see my truck's actually moved to the end of the line. For some reason, you have to just do that to trigger it with the Follow Path tool at the minute. So, I know the truck was pointing along the x-axis, so we can set that as the forward axis, and we're going to get into Follow Curve again. So you can see now he's in position, and we're going to just bring him onto the road itself. Now, if we go back to the timeline, I'm just going to wipe out these old scenes here that I've got. Put it to 0, get the truck on 0, we'll bring him to 100, and let's bring him along the road to here. We're going to click on a keyframe there. We're going to go to 125. Let's take him backwards. And then we're going to go to 200. We'll just take him to the end of the road. And if you see now, when I hit play, we're going to get the truck run nice and smoothly along the curve, looking like he's actually following a road. And in some future tutorials, I'm going to also get into the detail of a lot of the plant that we've got pre-built in our models have armatures with them, so when the truck reverses up, we can animate like the truck tipping a load, bringing the bin back down, and then driving off. We've got excavators that are animated to load trucks, things like that as well. Also with this, for example, with this truck scene, I find it really handy once I've got one of these animations set for one of the projects that I'm working on. It gives me then the opportunity to create that multiple times. So for example, if I'm creating a construction visualization where I may have 10 trucks being loaded up and taking material to another job and we need to show that, once I have to create that under this system once, I can then just copy this, and then I can just stagger the keyframes in the editor to the timeline editor here. And then before you know it, suddenly I've got 10 trucks all working in sequence, being loaded up and taking material to another site. Thanks for watching. Hope you found this helpful. Please hit the like and subscribe and stay tuned for more videos.